What is up, my friends? This is the Protect Your Neck podcast, and I'm your host, Dan Tom. Analyst whose work you could find over at MMA Junkie as well as linemovement.com. But on this here program, the Protect Your Neck podcast, we break down high-level MMA, but we do it in a bit of a different way, especially on these top 5 shows. The UFC schedule, the MMA schedule, let's be honest, got to give credit to Bellator, KSW, ACA, ONE, and all the rest, is a bit crazy. So it's hard to take a break and reflect on history, but I like history. I think it's probably healthy for us all to reflect as to why we like this crazy sport. So we have these here top 5 shows. We'll get to the topic in 1 second. But on these shows, I need a co-host, which is good for me and even better for you. You're not just stuck with my drony voice the whole time. I got Agent Ben 10. That's right. Ben Kohn from the fight site, fight-site.com, where you've probably seen his work. You've seen his interviews. Agent Ben, the man on the mug. We could probably go for a bunch of names, official or non. So we'll just leave it at that before I have to start bleeping myself. Just kidding. You can curse on this show. What's up, Ben?
Not much. I am trying to recover from a very long drive this morning, and I could think of no better way to do it than to join you for this upcoming topic, which I'm truly passionate about. And I feel like I bring a unique perspective to the topic, which I will not spoil until you drop it. So, thank you for having me.
Well, thank you, man, and thank you for dropping it. I don't know if I dropped the @ in front of the Agent Ben 10, but that's where you can find him on Twitter, and I double back to bring that up because that's kind of where this topic kind of spawned for top 5 Thicc fighters. I definitely want to talk to you, Ben, and set you up, but I mean, people are going to read this title. It's on YouTube. Hello, as we expanded the podcast beyond audio. So let's definitely let's plant the seeds now, and then we'll just ease in as everybody knows. The lunatics run the asylum here, so format's not a strong theme, but I think we have some explaining to do we not?
Yeah. This is entirely my fault, I would say. I got bored one day and decided to run a tournament for who has the best ass in men's mixed martial arts. I won't spoil the winner in case he ends up on either one of our lists, and I would assume that he does. But it became something bigger than anyone could have expected, and especially more. It's bigger than I am. So Dan reached out and said, "Let's make this a thing," and I'm sorry.
Yeah,
I'm so sorry.
I mean, the fight site asks the important questions. You guys nerd out on analysis like I do, but for anybody that listens to this show, there's also dark alleys and dark turnoffs because I imagine you and plenty of your cohorts, if you will, also have a dark sense of humor. I know it's a wild venture to guess there, Ben, but am I right?
You are 100% correct. Dark is a word that I could say covers it pretty well.
I mean, put it this way. I jokingly did a Patreon request where I'm like, how much for it to get Ed Gallo to do a wrestling breakdown of the shower fight scene in Eastern Promises. And I was hoping to just get repugnant responses, but you guys seemed quite willing. It was scary.
Well, if you've seen my my tribute to WAP, you would know that we can get a little too willing to do certain things, I would say.
Well, that is why the fight site has seemingly infiltrated this podcast amongst many others. You guys hit that special chord, and we're going to touch on the more unpopular chord. Obviously, we're not actually going to not be talking so much about the technical stuff that I usually geek out on. Perhaps you hear Ben or others or people he's interviewing geek out on. We got a little bit of a different tone in store for you folks, and we're gonna touch back on that in a second. But Ben, aside from interviews, fight site, being in the MMA space, it seems interesting, man, just by touching on your profile and seeing you through an online medium in a limited capacity that I have, I venture to say that you kind of come at this from a similar space than me. I don't like using the word fan, like this show has listeners, it doesn't have fans, you know what I'm saying? Like, right. I have a weird relationship with that word. But yeah, I kind of come from being a fan, but more specifically, and maybe rounding more to you, I come from the martial arts side of things, and that's the voice I'm attracted to. I like to hear more of and try to project myself, the martial arts side of things. Is that your background into this?
Yeah, I mean, my background and how I got into MMA. I mean, I found it by accident. Some friends of mine were into it and told me. But in 2012, I dropped into an MMA expo, got a free week of training at Marcelo Garcia's, and I never left. So for me, like as I grew in both jiu-jitsu and I started writing, and I worked for a couple websites, and it just it kept growing. The fight site gave me an opportunity to really, I guess, stretch my legs and spread my wings in terms of from an analytical perspective and how I view mixed martial arts. It's helped me grow, and I love it. I mean, like to be surrounded by guys like Ryan and Phil and Tommy and Ed and Saram and Danny and all those guys, our intern Greg, it's helped me grow in my love of the sport in a way that I never thought I could, because as much as I liked the technical and analytical side, to be part of such a group of strong and I guess they're the best analysts in the game. I don't know how else to put it. I don't know. People may disagree. People may agree. I think that they are, and it's helped me grow my love of the sport. So I'm a bigger fan than I've ever been of this sport now than just even a year ago. So for me, that's exactly how I come at it. Come at it from a perspective of both a fan and also someone who just really tries to pull from my own experience as a martial artist and from people who I think know better than me and are better martial artists than me. So if that ramble made any sense.
No, it did, man. It did, and you know, that's probably why I pay you guys so much respect, because I obviously hold you guys in high regard, feel you guys are heralded. And, if you look at my hosting site that's hosts this here podcast, if you guys want to support it, mixedmartialanalyst.com, a lot of it was designed for the same things. And I never got to the point of branching out because, aside from the obvious, like the Jack Slacks, or, more well-known guys who would dabble and give due respects, like the Luke Thomases of the world, there really wasn't much, 5 or 6 years ago for me. So that's kind of what I started, and I didn't exactly, get off the ground because I actually ended up getting jobs. So for whatever reason, people employed me. So the site kind of was just as is, and it just holds my content now, which is fine. But to see you guys get off a collaborative deal was super cool. But back to you real quick. You say 2012 is when you went to Marcelo's?
Yeah. February of 2012 was when I officially signed up. He just did like a seminar, and you could like do a training with the masters. It was Lee Kemp for wrestling, Jimmy Pedro for judo, which I ended up interviewing him, which is kind of cool. Like 8-9 years later to interview the guy who gave me that lesson, and Marcelo, and he gave out a free week of training, and
wow.
I never left. It was the best decision, one of the best decisions of my life. Probably marriage and kids at top that. But
dude, you probably strangled me a timer there when I was passing through. I think the first time I went was either late 2011, early 2012, and then I definitely had trips in the winter. I was chasing a girl who lived up there, and I ended up moving there myself. I could not get a lot of time off, much less afford Marcelo's, so I would use it was either 2 weeks or something free, like a trial, but you had to have like a valid membership. And when I was just visiting before I moved, I was able to use one of my friends who trained there. And then when I moved there, I used mine, and then after that I had to pay, and it was pretty expensive, but it was so nice because I worked at the Whole Foods right in Midtown that was literally right around the corner there. So
I know what you're talking about too.
Yeah, so everybody would come in after, like the instructors and stuff, and you'd see them, right? And man, I was just so impressed with the level. Not that I was or am or ever will be anything special, but yeah, I felt levels before. I roll with pros and stuff on the regular, or decent level grapplers, higher level grapplers, like that feel, man, and was just really impressed with that. I was really, honored to be able to train there for a little bit. Wish I'd trained there more, but was really impressed with that overall level. So who knows, man? Maybe I was strangled by Ben back in the day.
I mean, back then I was just a wee little white belt, so I don't know. Or I was more of a chubby white belt, I would say, is a better way of putting me
You
at the
chubby?
time.
What?
I was at my heaviest. I started training at Marcelo's. I was weighed 220 at
Wow.
5'10". Not a good combo. It was really bad. I weigh
Wow.
175 now.
You,
So
you look great, man, and I would have guessed you had one, a good metabolism or something, but that's not taking any credit. In fact, now that gives me even more credit in my mind. I'm closer to the 5'10" side of 5'9". I do the opposite thing that dudes do. I always minus. I always minus instead of add. You know what I mean? But because and I know this because I actually train with people who are heighted in at an amateur and pro level on commission heights, and they're like, dude, I'm 5'10". You are the same height, if not taller than me, and I insist on. I'm like, nah, I'm 5'9", man, 5'9", bro.
it's so
it's the,
give
but
yourself that extra like, oh no, I'm not that tall now. Leave me alone. Leave me alone. It's fine.
I'm sitting at two
Man.
bills now, which is heavy, but I've never gotten up to 220. But I've moved up toward that direction not too long ago, and I've had to fight it. So man, mad props to you. I'm hoping me getting back into jiu-jitsu now will help weld that down. But let's take this and segue from personal back onto the topic here. In fact, because let me embrace my thickness. Usually I give myself a little bit of crap here for not being down at my fighting weight, Ben. There's pictures of me. Yeah, I made it down to 149. I might have felt drunk at the
Damn.
scale. I might have felt drunk at the scale, with my thick. But you know what? Even though I am not thick by definition, as the Urban Dictionary, which does include the buttocks people for Ben's reference earlier, it was not out of place. That is included in the description, I believe, if you go look up thick, THICC in Urban Dictionary. But yes, as a Pacific Islander, part Hawaiian, kid, my body naturally wants to be Mark Hunt, man. So even now, you could say I'm slim now at 200 pounds. I mean, you look at Mark Hunt, we're practically the same size. He's arguably an inch taller. And I'm like, this guy's fighting at heavyweight. And I don't look it, but even when I think my last competition was at 159, so like lightweight area for grappling. But I might not look it, but I've got some thicker set legs and whatnot. And basically, when I'm looking at thick fighters on this list, Ben, I'm looking for guys that from butt to legs, they look like they don't need to get the arm over to the other side to finish the triangle. You know what I'm saying? They just need a good. If they get a good catch, they just need a flex, and you're getting the tap. Does that make sense?
That's a beautiful way of putting it. I couldn't say it better myself, honestly.
I mean,
That's perfect.
so as we transition back into this ridiculous topic here, we try to take
I have
ourselves
to add.
serious.
I have to add.
Please add. Hey, go ahead, please.
I was because that just happened to me. That's why I'm adding.
Giving you
2 weeks ago,
flashbacks.
I was rolling with this 4Cs, lower body down, super thin upper body, just these massive and
Yes.
he triangled me with no arm across. I thought I was safe, and I just feel the life being squeezed out of me. I was just like, what is going on? I tap. I'm like, that's not supposed to happen. I told him this because he's a blue belt, and I'm like, you're not supposed to be able to do that to people. You're gonna fight people your own weight. And he's like, bro, I'm 190. I'm like, God damn it.
It sucks because it's seriously one of the most rewarding feelings when you're able to pull it off, and I don't know if it's because I'm even thicker and less flexible now, to where if I'm able to catch a triangle, I'm just like I'm feeling I'm gonna lose it in the adjustment period. Let's give the old college try.
I I have some decently thick legs, and I got some cake to work with, but
Okay.
like for me, it's like I have stubby legs, so like they're like short, and I got this longish torso, which is just a weird, terrible combo for striking. I feel like, and
Yeah, I
it's
understand,
it's
yeah.
especially because I have short arms. It's not like I have like the long freaky arms like GSP or something like that. Like I got like short arms, short legs, and a long torso. It's like I'm Chad Mendez without any of the athleticism, essentially.
I could be mix and match with you. I'm like, I've got short arms, which is like I was just talking on a buddy of mine. Bill Welker on his podcast, and I was that's the curse. I love head and arm chokes, like Darces that require. It would be a lot easier if I had me some Tony Ferguson set of arms on me, and my torso though I don't have a long torso. In fact, here's a visual because it's actually sadly really appropriate, and I don't mean this like it sounds like I'm putting myself up, but I'm not. I've got the Tom Cruise torso. I've got that weird, short, stubby. I know you think, oh, Tom Cruise is a beautiful. No. I'm not talking about looks, folks. I'm talking about strictly torso here. I'll even go back to 80s Cruise. I'll even give you that. Go to Cruise in his prime, even though he doesn't seem to age. He's got that thick torso, and you realize, like, oh yeah, he's a bantamweight. He's like 5'5". That makes sense. But then I have these long, thick, but also very, long and disproportionate legs. So that's where my disproportion comes in, sir. So we're crapping on ourselves, but also explaining why we relate to the thickness here. Keep in mind, folks, we are speaking of these people. We are punching up here. We are not, whether it's men or even women. We'll see if me and Ben are brave enough to brave that front. Keep in mind, we are being respectful, and we're giving some praise here, baby.
This is not. We're not trying to objectify in any sort of negative way to anyone who may take it that way. We do, of course, apologize. Feel free to message us, and by us I mean me, because Dan doesn't deserve this. This is my fault. So,
well, you know what?
Know if you're upset.
We can only do you know what I'm saying, you can only do hook KOs or high kick KOs so many times. You know what I'm saying? Well, I'll burn through topics too fast. I gotta mix in some wild cards here, so. You're helping me there, but let's not speak too soon. We'll see what we say here. Ben, and for folks that know, we go from 5 to 1 on this show, back and forth, like a tennis game, and an inappropriate one in this case. And at the end, we will go listener mentions to get your lists in, and whatever we miss, you miss, we'll clean up in our honorable mentions. And it's the basic top 5 format for every show. I will timestamp things may come up. That's fine. But full disclosure, you folks might be listening to this and seeing this while I'm on a vacation, or I might release it ahead of time because this thing is there is some demand. Believe it or not, there is some demand out there. We'll get to those listeners lists soon. So Ben, do you want the steering wheel first? Should I take it? What are you feeling, sir?
I think I'll go first, if only because my number 5 is someone I doubt anybody would have thought of.
Ooh.
Ever.
Okay.
So I'm just going to go ahead and drop it. And I want to drop my reasoning before I drop the name. My reasoning for this is there's a beauty in aesthetics, and there's a beauty in symmetry in these aesthetics. So when people think of the term thick, they're usually going to go waist down. And this man has that. But it's not just the waist down. This is a man who your mom and my mom most certainly would have seen this at the age of 50 and gone, well, that's a strapping young man right there, and taken the picture to their room. Now,
oh my God,
Ron Waterman that nobody would have brought in. But I urge every man, woman, child, and mother listening to this podcast to Google Mr. Ron Waterman.
The facial hair one.
To see this behemoth of a human being in washed blue jeans, staring just with the ultimate smolder, with his bleached goatee, holding a chain. You and everyone who you know will understand just why I chose Ron Waterman. Now, the reason why I thought it was important, now he may not have the single largest ass on this list, or even compared to some honorable mentions, but to be so symmetrical, to have the upper body to match the lower body, I feel like that truly encompasses the word thick in a way that some people just don't. And that is why Ron Waterman takes my number 5. He's got the cake, he's got the legs, sure. But in addition to that, he's thick up top, and I think that's equally as important in many ways. So that is why Ron Waterman is my number 5.
Yeah, and you really got to make sure, I think the mustache really drove home the mom comparison for me. And not all of them are going to pull up the Ron Waterman with the mustache. But I tell you, that is just. I mean, you can't. It looks like he could be a character like in Dragon Ball Z for the American wrestler guy or something. Like he just looks like that character, like who they draw in standard. Like we need the Ron Waterman imagery. Like there's a default all aspect to that. That's fantastic.
Dude, he's the live action Nappa.
That is yes. Oh my goodness! Wow, scoot over Glover Teixeira with the goatee. Enter Ron Waterman. That is a great Nappa. Holy crap! And by the way, if you want to go down that road, I have Fabio Maldonado as what was his name? Which Ginyu guy with the weird hair? He's got that weird hair, especially when Maldonado got punched a bunch. Yeah.
Raku.
Yeah, Raku. That's who I had Fabio Maldonado as for my. All right, Dan, don't go down that hole. Ron Waterman's a great number 5. That's a great hipster choice. At least for me and listeners of the show will know, my number 5 slot is a hipster slot. And I'm going to go hipster myself, Ben, for number 5. In the spirit of the fight site, it will be somebody who's made a top 5 list of mine before. I believe he made it on there for his knockout of Terrell Ragamoff on my top 5 hook KOs with Conor Rebush. And he makes it back here. No, it is not Fight Site. Who I wouldn't be surprised if everyone on the Fight Site, by the way, who's been on the show, has managed to sneak in Ali Bagoff into their top 5. And I said last time, like as to Ryan Wagner's a running joke, like I don't care what the topic is. It could be the least Ali Bagoff thing, which he actually could qualify for. I mean that's. He's got some muscles on him, that boy. But you know, like it doesn't even matter if it's something that he wouldn't qualify for. Like I would like it if every fight, no pressure, Ben. It's just a running joke. Like you guys should like jokingly add an Ali Bagoff for every every list, even if he doesn't belong. But I'm going with Oleg Borisov, baby. 5'3", 64.2. I mean, you know you were short when you're fighting for the .2. Whenever you ever seen a .2 listed on Tapology? Oleg Borisov, that's who. You got to fight for every inch when you're generously listed at 5'3". You're fighting at bantamweight, but you're just a ball of brick muscle who was scoring knockouts at featherweight where you're extra thick, Oleg Borisov was. And again, that knockout of Terrell Ragamoff is just burnt into my brain. I know he's on a current 3-fight losing streak. He got some majority decisions in there, you know. But still, man, Borisov, it always ranks high with me. He just makes no sense. He's got an amazing base as well, not just knockout power, right? Like, you've seen guys get in on his hips. They're almost off the ground, and he's rotating his hips, hitting the inside kind of sweep move for, like, that kind of poor man's Uchimata to reverse position, to reverse spots midair. Like, he's got that kind of sickness and explosion, which is another thing I think about not just the physique that we're, you know, for the most homoerotic episode ever. Nothing wrong with that, by the way, folks, but let's just call it what it is here. We're also talking about performance as well, for what it's worth. There is some analysis, and I think the amazing thing about Thicc fighters is that unspoken power from knockouts to grappling that's really hard to account for, right?
Yeah, that's I wanted to I probably should have gone into how good of a wrestler Juan Waterman was too. Now that I think about it, but I was a little bit too focused on
We're enamored.
The fact that my mom definitely would have absolutely just immediately just taken my computer from me and borrowed that for a little while. So I probably should have just mentioned his wrestling at least. So it's good that you brought that part.
Oh, dude, I mean, real quick, 90s early 2000s MMA possible play, who Playgirl would approach. I gotta imagine it's like Ken Shamrock, Ron Waterman, right?
Yeah, he's got to be up there. He's the perfect like look for that for sure.
Yeah, totally.
And yeah, just a quick scroll through Google Images will. Yeah, I don't know. I fell down a bit of a rabbit hole myself in his Google image search. I'm not even gonna lie to you.
This is definitely the most homoerotic episode which says a lot for listeners of this show. Which, by the way, you talk about thickness in the lower half of Waterman. When you were using that description, I'm like, I have to give a disclaimer too, like, especially with like my number 3 when we get there, like it runs dangerously close where these guys could qualify in other lists. Speaking of lower half. But I don't want to tread on other podcasts, and if I were to do that kind of a top 5, I would definitely need a Patreon paywall to hide behind for one, and I would probably have to bring someone from the MMA Analysis podcast for some good old hog analysis. But hey, rescue me from this hole I'm digging us in, Ben. Yeah, so I got
to take it out of the homoerotic space.
Okay, you got your number 4 set up?
I got my number 4 set up,
All right,
and
let's go.
Here's where we enter the danger zone. And okay, look, in advance, nobody's going to disagree with me on this. I want to make that clear. You can't. If you do, you're wrong. And it's Rachel Ostovich.
Whoa, Hawaii. All right, speaking of the natural thick bodies that I said, floor is yours, Ben. Let's go. Let's hear it.
Okay. I was trying, in my head to justify not putting Rachel Ostovich on here because, like I said with Ron Waterman, I want to see thickness in a muscular sense in a lot of ways. I want to see somebody who's thick, but also, thick. And then I was looking through pictures, and I was like, why am I lying to myself? This is just stupid. You know she's on this list. Who are you trying to fool? Are you trying to be like the hipster, I'm not going to put Rachel Ostovich on the thickest fighters in MMA? Get over yourself. Put Rachel where she belongs. She's easily, arguably, a number 3. And I'm going to put her at number 4, if only because, I still want to have that, little hipster thing going on where I'm not going to put her in the top 3, all right? I'm just going to, not put her in the top 3. Can't do it. But Rachel Ostovich, the thickest of thick below a matching top to go along with. Maybe not the most skilled fighter in terms of her overall performances. She's definitely improved. I think we do know that based on her recent fights. But there's still some who would say she's not necessarily the most skilled fighter. But this ain't a list about the most skilled fighters in MMA. This is a list about the thickest fighters.
Hey, and we're talking about thigh strength, right? And say what you will about the skill discrepancies of Ostovich, and that's no shot. But we talked about how useful thick thighs can save lives from guard, right? How are most not even what's the most submission in female MMA fights, Ben? How are most female MMA fights finished? What would be your guess, highest percentage?
Probably, arm bars, I would say.
There we go. So, that probably doesn't hurt, right? Yeah, right? That doesn't hurt Rachel hitting those arm bars.
She's got a bunch of arm bars.
Yeah.
I think most of her wins are arm bars. And I kind of want to see her do the Ben Askren thing with a watermelon. So...
Well, speaking of, paywalls, that's something that, we'll have to, someone will have to get in her ear about that because these fighters got to make some money, man. They're not, they're going out there and they're busting literal watermelons on people's heads and, barely getting the regular bonuses. So we got to figure something out, right?
I'll bet you $50 that breaks the Affliction pay-per-view record.
Jeez. In this day and age, man, especially.
No question to me.
OnlyFans is going to take over Bellator for number 2 for UFC's competition if they're not careful, if you ask me. But
fuck Dazin going to OnlyFans to watch the next Canelo fight.
Yes, that's right, baby. Man, you're making me want to change my number 4 was almost a female who ends up with the H next to her name, which is the special honorable mention spot. So I'll save that for then. All my spots here are kind of more personal because that was the only way to decipher. Peeling back the curtain, me and Ben whittled down our list fairly okay, but numbering these as often as the case, even for the more serious topics, just as those, that was kind of the harder thing for us. So what separated it for me, Ben, was more personal things. And again, as a thick dude who came in, actually I was not as thick as I am now, sadly. I was in, the 180 to maybe 190 range, definitely 190 range, going into Extreme Couture. And about 2007 is when I signed up, I think, 2008-ish. And training there, and it was great because they didn't have the 2-room. It was all the 1-room. And I think between 4 and 6 or so, they had pro practice, sparring, and I would show up early, and maybe because I was quiet and polite enough, they would let me go in and kind of stretch. And you weren't stretching, you were just watching what was essentially the sparring finish out. And you're watching guys like Tyson Griffin versus Gray Maynard versus Martin Kampman, and all these like dream matchups, right? Like Matt Brown jumped in there, like, oh, that's the right after the Ultimate Fighter, you're like, oh, it's the heroin guy. I thought he was dead. That's awesome. I mean, this was like kind of like the heyday, right? Randy's still competing, right? He's in his comeback. He might have even had a belt, and it is one of the super camps of the super camps in this era of super camps, right? And even though lightweight is still a developing and not as popular, you do got some lightweights. And as big as Gray Maynard, the talks was which was crazy. Like back in the day, people were like, I don't know how Gray Maynard makes 155, and now he's fought at 145. He's no longer considered a big 55er. But another guy in that discussion was Tyson Griffin, who is my number 4, and he was just another guy where. I mean, I remember I used to have conversations with this heavyweight, my dude from New Zealand, Bryce Ratani. He's fought pro MMA. I think he boxed Joseph Parker. But and Bryce kind of got down in weight a bit too. He actually did a really good job. But for a guy that he had the Mark Hunt thing, he was actually taller and bigger looking than Mark Hunt. But he had trouble getting to 265. Like he would have to fight like super heavyweight regional stuff or something. And people didn't understand because he was a big guy, but he didn't look that big. And so we got along because we understood the Thicc Island boy troubles, right? The Thicc boy problems. How, I had the same. I was a much smaller version, but I had to kill myself just to get to, 155 to 145 range. And I'm not big by those. Even if you want to be generous and say I'm 5'10", there's no way I'm longer than a 68-inch reach. Like I'm not. And I'm definitely not physically imposing looking. That's for dang sure. So, but I would have to kill myself and work 3 times as harder than the athlete, and that's what was and you get no credit for it, of course, and usually don't show much for it because I was more of a gym guy than a competition guy. Another story, but it was just nice to talk to someone that had that struggle, and he would always bring up Tyson Griffin. He's like, oh, I don't know how Tyson gets down there. He's like a brick. And like Tyson, I think eventually got down to 45 and even fought at 45 before, I believe, is when he knocked out Faber back in the Dizzy. But yeah, man, he was just a guy who I would kind of mark, and I didn't have much interaction with him. I didn't know him. He seemed like a nice enough guy. But he was a guy where I marked where I'm like, okay, if he can do it, I can do it. And it sounds silly and stupid, but I think we all kind of will find models, whether it's a game skill level or a physique or a look. And Tyson Griffin was a guy where I'm like, if that bricked up dude that thick dude can get down, maybe I can too. So I ranted and raved, but it sounds like you've got some love for Tyson Griffin, Ben.
Well, as a matter of fact, he's my number 3.
Woo!
This is the overlap that we were discussing. And
I sunk your battleship.
You sunk my battleship, but I got him at my number 3 spot because I've mentioned before that I like symmetry, and I like that. And Tyson is, he was not a small man up top, but sometimes the dumper is just so enormous, and just the cheeks are so thick. The clap can be heard from across the arena, through the crowd, through everything. You could just hear Tyson going clap, 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 and that's because of one of the asses of the century, you might even say.
Was it UFC 67 where Joe Rogan anointed it in that Frankie Edgar fight? Wasn't that the famous line?
I think that was it. I think you're right. I don't. Was it that Frankie Edgar fight?
I would have thought it was later, but I actually Googled it a couple days ago, and that was the fight that came up for whatever reason.
I thought it would have been something a little further down, but yeah.
Me too. I thought too. Like they went right off the bat, but I mean it's hard to sell. I mean Rogan's affinity for leg kicks and men's thighs is something that's very far-reaching for those who aren't aware. Like he gets lost in the sauce. Like Rogan, aside if it was like Czech Congo or like, who we used to like literally get hard at the weigh-ins. Like that's my favorite thing, going to MMA Junkie weigh-in photos before the live streams were a big deal. And you would see Rogan just like Googling and be like, Dan, you're sick. You're I'm like, yes, it's true. I am sick and perverted in the head. But it's really there. And sure enough, when Rogan would have his podcast, who would he always bring up when he was talking about, below the waist stuff or muscles? Czech Congo, right? I wasn't imagining things, was I? But Rogan also loves, like there's that meme where it's like Rogan, he's thinking and it goes, I want more leg kicks here, Mike. In fact, all I want is leg kicks. Because that was his, remember that was his That was his. That was his. People make fun of him. Like, that's Joe Rogan's fix for everything is more leg kicks. But in Joe's defense, it was because, like, perhaps me and you, Ben, are guilty of clearly. Not to pick on Joe or put him on an island here, is that maybe he's got an eye for the thickness. You know, I mean, even guys like Ante Gulov, who was a no-name fighter. You go back and watch his first fight. Joe Rogan is talking about his thighs the whole damn time, all the way until the replay.
Every Ben Henderson fight was about 12 minutes of Joe Rogan just drooling over his thigh. First of all, we might really need to revisit this for strictly thighs alone because Ben Henderson might win that one a pretty high. Like, he had... But we can't get sidetracked.
I know.
Think of the asses. All right.
Think of the asses. All I'm hearing is Conor McGregor's voice in my head. Those tick toys. Oh, look at those tick toys. Sorry. Apologies for the terrible accent. Move on. Save us from this.
Tyson Griffin's ass is phenomenal. Is basically the point we're trying to make here.
Yes, pretty much.
Like, he brings a comfortable cushion everywhere he goes. Imagine being able to sit on a park bench and feel like it's a freaking lazy boy. How amazing would that be? I feel like if he would have done the atomic butt drop on Wanderlei Silva, there would have been a hole through the ring. That's all I can say.
Dude, that's true. I mean, he's got that thing, like, whether he's in camp or off the camp. And forgive me, ladies, on commenting on the female body. I'm just repeating things I've heard female athletes say, especially when they cut weight or get in a certain shape and a certain cardiovascular sport. They lose their boobs and they complain about it, right? I don't think. All I'm trying to say is I don't think Tyson Griffin had that complaint on the buttocks.
And in fact, I think it's quite the opposite. I think that the reason why he tried cutting so much is because dragging that huge dumper around probably was a chore.
I mean, that's another thing. That's another reason why I'm including height and their weight classes to kind of give that proportion.
Mm-hmm.
And again, you know, we'll save it for the thighs, the best thighs in MMA, or the, you know, the shout outs to the analysis for the hog analysis. Yeah, dong. A lot of those have very similar proximities, right? I mean, there's a reason why they're like, "What? This guy is only so hot. This guy's only so tall. Like, he should be fighting at 2 weight classes lower." Like, wrong. You seen? You looked in the midsection. Just saying. I'm punching up, folks. I'm punching up. Forgive me. I'm just saying.
I want to use Tyson Griffin's ass as a speed bag.
Oh, Jesus. So, folks, note that Ben actually has Tyson Griffin higher on the list than number. Oh wait, you already went for your number 4. My bad. It was that was
not my number 3.
That was Rachel Ostovich. So we went right to your number 3. So that actually worked out perfectly. You didn't have to skip one. It kind of bridged right over. So does that mean the basketball is back in my court? I should know this. I'm the host.
Sir.
Yeah, well, that's kind of perfect because we were just talking about guys who could qualify in the thigh range. And, you know, again, I don't want to steal on another podcast, which I always make sure I give due credit to for their I don't even want to say it's a gimmick or a shtick because they just live by the same Bible as we do, apparently. But the MMA Analysis podcast, who originated, and I bring them up, Ben, because they originated this name for William Knight at my number 3, Thicc Willie. Thicc Willie, baby. And Thicc Willie is pretty high, but it's funny because Thicc Willie's a perfect number 3 because he's the only person on this list who, given time, he can climb his way up. I mean, especially that he's showing these Derek Lewis vibes about his style, and he's just overcoming fights that he should be losing. I mean, you know, and just letting the legend of his thickness grow. He could easily climb his way up this list. However, whether he's at 3 or number 1, Willie is so thick. Again, back to the reason why I mentioned the hog analysis, guys. You'll have to ask Wesley Colvin, who mentioned something about a Pringles can. I don't know. You have to ask him about that. The point is, Thicc Willie could be at number 3, but I feel like, who's at my number 4? Tyson Griffin? I feel like Tyson Griffin's doing this. Like, dog, get out of my box. You're sagging into my box. You know,
like,
I mean,
Hollywood Squares or something.
Yeah, I mean, Thicc Willie's like everywhere. I mean, and I don't have any personal interaction with him. Although, when I mentioned a potential MMA manager, I think behind the scenes that I didn't realize works with this guy, is Tyson Chartier, who I like and respect, and he apparently follows my stuff, and I didn't realize that, and I'm like, holy crap, has Tyson just been hearing me jaw on about just the thickness of his fighter, and like because Tyson's like is a legit Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu black belt, has fought corners like Cater, all these guys, and he shared in interviews, which I'm flattered that I guess I'm one of the accounts that they'll assign someone in the corner to look at media scores or of trustworthy media because to get an idea where they're at in the rounds because you can't really score when you're cornering, and you obviously can't trust the judges. And I've been told sometimes that some people as well will kind of reference, what I think. So I'm like thinking about that. I'm like, I hope he's not referencing too much about what I think, because man, have I been like, and I don't have any personal experience with Thicc Willie, but he showed up on Contender Series twice. I was there for the first time in person last year, when we were still, it was easier to cover these things in person. And literally, I've seen so many thick, muscular, crazy things in the sport, in gyms, at fights. I literally, and like, I watched the promo package, you do the study on, I didn't really realize how thick this guy was until he walks into the Apex. It's a small, intimate venue, folks. And he's walking up the stairs, and I mean, as beautiful as Laura Sanko is, even she couldn't command my attention the way Thicc Willie did. I literally did one of those like Paul Rudd from Wet Hot American Summer double takes. I had John Morgan. Everyone knows John Morgan, MMA Junkie. I had him sitting next to my right. And it was one of those perfectly timed things. We both did the double take to each other. Like, what the is that real? Did somebody have one of those like balloon did somebody bicycle pump like hook him up to a bicycle pump before he went out there? Like, I literally thought that's what happened. I've never seen a thicker fight. I almost wanted to put this guy to an immediate number one back then. Like, that's how thick this man is. I'm sorry, I'm gonna get lost in the thickness here. Is this guy? I know he's not a big name, so I don't blame you, Ben. But was he even on your radar?
He was actually. It's interesting that you asked that because immediately after the conclusion of the, I think this was immediately after or right before the conclusion of the tournament, the initial tournament. When he fought, somebody tweets at me, a new contender has entered the arena.
Yes!
Yes! I was like, I legitimately was thinking the exact same thing.
Oh, yes!
I have him. He was on my radar, so there is no question that he was on my radar. He did not make my top 5, though. And that is because the top 2 people, I feel like at least one of them you'll have. But I decided to, for my list, I had to pay tribute to a legend who was unfortunately taken from us far too early.
Oh.
He was known as the Monster.
Oh.
And while that was more related to his fighting ability and style, it truly does encapsulate him as a thick man. This man's thighs, this man's ass, this man's torso and chest and biceps, every single muscle group that was somehow fit into this 220-pound man's body, yet still looked 250, defined Thicc in a way that it's hard as a that large of a man, and just that's why I actually put guys like Waterman on here and Randleman, because like you said, when you're smaller and you're larger, it shows more. But when you're a large man and you're large and in charge, that's where I have true respect. Because you took something that it's more of like, I'm really thin, but look at this ass. No. I'm thick everywhere, and you're still going to look at my ass because goddamn, bro, Kevin Randleman, rest in peace. Sir, I don't know if this would actually amuse you or entertain you, but my God, what an ass on you, sir. And you were a UFC heavyweight champion, but you still have one of the thickest fighters of all time belt, in my opinion. You are the number 2 thickest person I could have thought of when coming up with this list. And while you're not used to being number 2, and you may not have liked it, God damn it, this is an honor. And I hope it means something to you. If you're looking down on us, and I hope you smile thinking of how thick your ass was, and the rest of you.
It was a stirring tribute. As a stirring tribute, Ben. Stirring tribute here. on the Protect Your Neck podcast. The late great Kevin Randleman. You're not.
He's coming to visit me in a dream, and he's going, I don't know you, but what the fuck, man?
What the fuck, man? Yes, that's great. You reminded me of a story. Maybe I'll share if I remember to, but also of a Kevin Randleman story. I might have shared once, but I don't know if it was on this podcast. So that's a great pick for one because like it's that athleticism, right? And especially doing the jump, the Kevin Randleman jump, to intimidate people that he would do in the beginning of every match because that's like the ultimate. What's the word I'm looking for? I don't think it's dichotomy. I don't think it's oxymoron, though there's a bit of that in there. But of what the thickness and that athleticism brings to where you're so thick, that's more gravity to be weighing you down. But at the same time, you're so thick, you got all that rocket power. And it's like, but you don't really know. It's hard to proportion in your head until you see them perform, right? Like which kind of thickness is it? And obviously there's a lot of rocket power in Kevin Randleman. And man, I don't know how Randy Couture was able to weather that storm of thickness when they fought back in the day. I watched that a couple months ago. Revisited that classic.
Fedor's alive. How the hell is Fedor even alive?
How is he alive? Yeah, from that.
He won that fight.
And I remember, I don't know if you remember Tough One, Alex Schonauer. He was he kind of I think he's Eastern European guy. He kind of had a Borat-y vibe to him, and not to be mean or anything, but he was great. And he would teach like the general MMA classes, like 2007, 2008. And Kevin Randleman was popping in, and he would do like promotions. He actually worked with like my old karate school and would do stuff at the amateur MMA events to help promote them, which was really nice. But he came into Extreme Couture, and I remember it was like wrapping up a lesson, and Alex Schonauer was like, "Okay, anybody, any question? No, okay." Because no one really talked. Like it just, you just kind of did what he said in Alex Schonauer classes, right? And all of a sudden you hear Alex from off the mat, and then you hear Schonauer go, ugh. And then you see that it's Randleman, and he goes, "Oh shit!" And like a cartoon, you hear like the footsteps like kind of come clearer in the sound, and he just rushes and tackles Schonauer, and he's like, "Stop it! What the fuck you doing? Please stop!" And then he puts him like in a head and arm. And does one of the things where he taps and he still kind of goes out afterwards, which happened to me this past weekend. Those are so brutal. And then he's like, "What the fuck, man? What did you do?" He's like, "Good to see you, Alex." And then he just gets off and leave, and he is so detached, like a late career Mike Tyson is now, where he's kind of not all, doesn't seem all, kind of all there. And I was just thinking, I'm like, this guy is still a beast. Like, why didn't he just take everybody down and head and arm choke him with that thick frame? Like, there's no way anyone could survive that head and arm choke with what that guy was working with. Like, that should have been your move from the shoot. Just polish that.
Can you imagine being triangle choked by Kevin Randleman?
Oh, jeez. And what's the worst part? Being triangle choked, or trying to figure out what to do with the babies that he just impregnated with you with in the process of it. Be hacking in the gym garbage can for a different reason. Jesus, I'm sorry for that visual, folks. I'm sorry.
What are you talking about? I'm raising those kids to be a freaking high-level MMA team. Are you crazy? That's genetic gold. Yeah. I'm taking everything that I got there, and I'm bringing them all to wrestling camps. And I'm going to just have them ruin everybody on the local jiu-jitsu circuit.
Yeah, I guess in my case, it would be like a Tiger Woods, right? Because, he'd be mixing a bit with the Asians, so I'd have to be like, all right, you get the best of both worlds. We got some mental determination and some raw thickness and athleticism. Let's do it.
I guess I'll give them the well-known athletic Jewish genes.
Hey, you guys were good boxers in the early century, but that's another. Hey, you know what? Either way,
it's been a while.
Either way, we both could use it. Put it that way. I think that's another reason why I get along with you so well, Ben. The Chinese and the Jews. Maybe it's the lifelong oppression, but we get along really well for whatever reason. My mother always said the Chinese and the Jews get along, and I'm like, oh well, it's probably some parallels to that. So that's another reason why I love you even more, sir. But yeah, Thicc Willie, man. Thicc Willie was my number 3. Where the hell are we at? We got lost in the sauce, didn't we, guys? Oh, yes, Kevin Randleman. Kevin Randleman was your number 2, and that reminded me of that Kevin Randleman story. And, yeah, man, that's a great number 2 there. Great number 2. You didn't sink my battleship, though I thought you were. Perhaps I'll sink one of yours. My number 2 is kind of in tandem with my number 1, so you can guess my number 1 probably off the number 2. And I'll get into the logic later. But, man, this was another one where I don't have any personal experience with this guy. Even if I did, I don't think we could understand each other. In fact, even if I spoke Portuguese, I don't think we could understand each other. That's right. Husamar Palhares. The first time I saw this guy, Ben, was... I know, right? I'm not trying to be mean with that comment, but yes, right? Which is ironic because the first time I saw this guy was... I believe one of the first weigh-ins I went to live, it's just making me sound older now, as it comes UFC 84 Ill Will at the MGM, Sean Shirk versus BJ Penn. And of course, Ivan Salivary, which is an old as shit name, I believe, fought Husamar Palhares. And it's like the days where, like, this is the Dana is my bitch, the infamous Tito Ortiz. Like, that's how long ago this weigh-in was. This was that weigh-in, folks. So people were actually weighing in live in real time where you didn't know if they were going to make weight. You didn't know if they were going to have a shirt disparaging the president of the company. Like, these were the golden days, okay, folks? This was the good days.
Best time.
The best times. And so you got this guy like Paul Harez who comes out, and he's, by the way, a lot of these fighters, not as thick when they first got into the UFC. I noticed there's a trend there. I don't know if it's strength and conditioning. I don't know if it's strength and conditioning. But, yeah, they tend to put the thickness on. But Paul Harris, I noticed he had this just, and there's an unfortunate story behind it you would later learn. But I'm like, dude, did this guy just come out of a knife fight? Because he's got this giant scar on his chest. He looks like they just let him out of a cage. And I'm apologizing, I'm not trying to be offensive with any, but he looks the freaking part, folks. Like, and then you find out his background. You're like, oh no, this is the real life Mowgli from the Jungle Book. And you want to root for him, but then he just is using his thickness for not the greater good. He is using his thickness, for the bad. He is like Mr. Glass taught us in Unbreakable. The hero and the villain are very similar, man. It's just they respond to adversity different, and something happened deep into those jungles. I don't know what came out, but Paul Harris is a monster. Ever since he even got out of the UFC, he only got more thicker to where he looked like he took all the steroids. I'm sorry, I think he's popped, so I think that's okay to say, right? It's a pretty safe assumption.
It's a very safe assumption, and
yeah.
My God, like I've never seen someone upgrade their thickness to the level that he has. Honestly,
it's like a video game, right? Where you download the expansion pack. You're like,
he does not look real.
No.
It looks like when you would have like those WWE games, and you'd make the create a character, and then just like max out their muscles with a tiny ass head.
Yeah, 5'8", 71-inch reach, folks, at middleweight, which will look very difficult for him to get down to. He looks like he strolls
he's
at 220.
Not a middleweight anymore. There's no way.
No way he can make it, right?
I can't imagine how he makes it. The guy looks like he weighs. I mean, the last time he fought was like 2018.
I think so.
Something
yeah.
Like that.
Yeah.
Yeah. I can't see how the man is anything less than a light heavyweight at this point. Honestly.
I mean, and not even just his record on the grappling scene or within the UFC. For holding submissions too long, but even just using your thickness for the evil. How could you use it for evil? Using it for knee joints, trying to pry someone so thick off of your knee. There is really no more eviler way, right, to really apply that thickness, and Husamar does that.
Don't forget him gouging the eyes of Jake Shields.
Oh yeah, that's right.
And then holding the Kimura for too long.
And he looks so genuinely questionable why people are upset. Every time he's like, what?
I don't understand.
What?
What he's either the most maniacally evil person, or there's the alternative where he genuinely doesn't understand what he's doing is wrong, which is probably an indication that he should not be fighting in a cage in the first place. But
I brought this up tongue-in-cheek, and I'm obviously very sensitive to not just people, but anything revolving the mental health spectrum. So I don't mean it in that way, but even from a light tongue-in-cheek way, which is arguable, you can do that these days, right? And I'm not arguing. To a more realistic way, if I throw out a term like team spectrum in MMA, there's legitimate fighters you could make a case for that are functioning and fucking people up. Just saying.
Yeah.
I'm not hating on it. I'm
I
just saying.
I don't know how I would react uh, if that was a thing. No, I'm lying. I know exactly. I would immediately start laughing because that's if they as a collective, like if people who man like if Husam Pahalas had a team of Husam Pahalas and they called themselves Team Spectrum MMA, that would be the most dark and like I don't know how it like that's an Anthony Jeselnik sketch come to life. Right
Yeah, I mean
there. That's an
that is
Anthony Jeselnik line come to life.
we're
I don't know how else to put it.
we're treading down some dark territory. So I'm gonna try to pull up. I'm gonna try to pull this plane
No, no,
up.
no, I
But
understand
but
completely.
no, you
And I happen to be to your point. I'm actually uniquely sensitive to it as well due to my personal experiences with that. I used to work um, with special needs kids all the time. Actually, it was one of the best times of my life. Just that experience, and also, I had family as well, and I will never, ever, ever forget what this kid told me. I was trying to help him do his homework, and he just did not want to do it. He had cerebral palsy, and obviously was not all there mentally as well. Smart though. I'm going to use the word, but for those who don't like hearing the R word, I do apologize. I'm literally quoting him word for word when I say this.
sure.
I was like, "You have to do your homework. You have to do your homework." He looks at me, could almost not keep a straight face as he said this, and goes, "What do you want from me? I'm retarded." I
Wow.
couldn't breathe. I inhale. He looks at me, points, and just starts laughing his ass off at me. He's like, "Gotcha."
Got a reaction from you. Wow.
I couldn't. I'm like, "Listen,
Wow.
I respect that hustle,
Yeah.
and I'm gonna do your homework for you tonight.
That's what's up.
But next
That's what's
time,
up.
you have to promise me you're doing your homework." He
Yes.
says, "Deal,
That's what's
absolute
up,
deal."
man. That's what's
I,
up.
I was, it was,
I was
but
gonna
that,
feel
like,
I was gonna feel really sad if that story didn't take that turn. If that was
oh
just
my
his
God,
feelings, I was gonna feel
I
crushed
could,
and heartbroken. Like,
I
so I'm
couldn't
glad. I'm
laugh.
glad he saved it. He saved
I
it.
couldn't laugh. I couldn't laugh. I was like, no, 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 no. You didn't just say that to me. And he's
Right.
like, he was trying
To get a
to mess with
reaction.
me, and he
Yeah. Totally.
succeeded.
Wow.
So I got to give him credit to that.
No.
So,
Totally. Totally, man. That's and I did a. I respect that. That's awesome. I didn't know that about you. And yeah, man. Like even not to timestamp it because the release of this is gonna be wonky from when we're recording it, but
sure.
yeah, I mean, and this will be public. Maybe will be public by the time this comes out.
Mhm.
But I recently did a podcast revolving a more known mental health podcast about a specific issue that I have experience and insight on. So believe me, yeah, not I don't and if anything, it'll explain a lot of my humor and why it's so dark. So when we bring that stuff up, it's not to take a shot. And in fact, when you
Oh,
look at a
absolutely
guy
not.
like back on track with Husmar Palhares, I mean, there's legit, weird, funny, whatever word you want to use, talking points aside. Like, no, there's legit grounds
Oh,
of
for
like
sure.
questioning that dude. I'm like, and I'm not talking about the grander issue of, is someone mentally fit to do anything? I believe me, I'm not going to feed that
No,
monster.
I understand. I mean,
But like as far as like, yeah, that could be a dude who, as far as people who are functional, like, and there's a gun in my head, and they're like, name one functionally fighter on the spectrum. I'm like, who's more Harris? Don't shoot me. That's gonna be my. You know what I'm saying? Like, if that makes sense.
I mean, I think it is. It
It's
does make perfect
terrible.
sense, and I think that with Husamar in particular, as an example, it does. It is a legitimate question to bring up. I mean, the dude nearly ended Mike Pierce's career. Uh, it's okay to talk about certain things, and yeah, I think it's also, if we're going back to the topic at hand of thickness, that's a sick number two. That's a
Man.
really good number two, and I definitely had him on my radar as well. Uh, but he just didn't make it to the top five. And man,
I'm surprised we haven't
uh,
had crossover yet, but I think we might have some on number one. What do you think, Ben?
do you want to try and say it at the same time and see if we got the guy? We got the guy.
Okay. Do you want to count us off, and we'll say it at the same time?
After, well, I'm gonna say three, two, one, and then we just say the name.
Okay. Cool. Full name?
Full name.
Okay.
3, 2, 1. Tyron
Hector
Woodley.
Lombard.
Oh!
Oh, wow.
I thought we would overlap there because he's in my honorable mentions also.
Wow.
That's really interesting. I really thought you would pick I mean, I have to go with the guy who won my tournament. I have to go with that guy. But
we need to
okay,
break down
you know
what this
what?
fight would have looked like in its prime, too, by the way. This will be a fun double talk. Because, like, I always wanted to see this matchup. And now they meet in the number 1 slot of top thick fighters, Ben, and it has to go down.
Now, are you picking middleweight Hector Lombard? I would assume.
You kind of got to, I mean, but it's more of a body of work thing. Everyone knows that, like, one of my favorite it was such a short period, but one of my favorite fighters ever, as far as getting me legitimately excited, was when he was going as Hector Lightning Lombard as a welterweight, and he just knocked Marquardt and Ellenberger, who's Ellenberger, he's got some thickness of his own there, by the way. But what he did to those guys and then tossing around Jake Shields like a lion with his prey was just kind of insane. So I just and it never got any better than that, right? Sadly, that was the peak. But yeah, it's body of work, Hector Lombard, and athleticism for me. But
did Lombard fight Ellenberger?
Didn't he? No, maybe not. I don't know.
He beat up Pajares.
Oh yeah, he did.
He knocked out Pajares back in middleweight.
Yep, which is the reason why I couldn't, out of principle, put Pajares above Lombard because it's actual head-to-head thickies. We don't get that a lot on this list, right? Like we're not going to see Ron Waterman, take on Rachel Ostovich, at least in an MMA setting. Easy. I just overloaded some systems.
OnlyFans.
Oh my God.
Bro.
Ron Waterman's coming out of retirement, baby.
Holy shit. Yo, bring that man out of retirement. God damn.
Ron Waterman.
Could you imagine how thick that their kids would be? Like, I need to take a walk.
Yeah, I know. You wouldn't even need those juicers for orange juice. You could just use the thighs one day, give it a break. We'll go between the elbow joints and biceps. I mean, it's just freshly squeezed every day. All right, I'm sorry. This is getting weird territory now. Tyron Woodley, though, that's an interesting choice because, I mean, you want to talk about waist down qualifying for all 3 of the categories that this dances around. Tyron Woodley's another one of those triple threats, right?
He's got the symmetry for the upper body and lower body, but at the same time, he's also got that really tapered waist, right? He's got a thick midsection, but his shoulder to waist ratio is phenomenal. He's got the V taper that you would want to see in a Mr. Olympia competition, right?
Yeah.
And at the same time, there's a thickness to his midsection, despite having that phenomenal V taper. And then he's just got one of the most just beautiful asses. You could even when they were sculpting perfect human being gods in Greek culture and Roman culture, and they were sculpting men to look like gods, they could not find a way to make a statue as perfect as Tyron Woodley. They gave them, some solid dumpers, and they wouldn't even touch Tyron Woodley's ass. He is forever and always undefeated as the greatest ass in MMA history, bar none to this day, because not only is it huge, not only is it shapely, not only is it round, it is muscle. It is pure, unadulterated muscle, and we're talking about explosion and power. That is a man and thighs to match, but they don't make his ass look smaller because he has such a bubble butt. It's perfection incarnate. If his rap game was half as good as a half an ass cheek, this man would be on par with Jay-Z, with Nas, with Eminem, with all of those guys. Not only on par, he'd be a top 10 rapper with half of a half an ass of a rap game.
As much as I want to make fun of the ass talk, you're on point for one about everything. He does win that category. And two, I'm just imagining because he's one of the most defensively stymieing clinch fighters, where he doesn't do much, but he's just quietly defends stuff. And I'm just picturing whether he's got an over and an under an overhook and underhook, double underhooks, whatever the tie-up position is, and the opposing fighter tries to advance. I love Tyron he won't move the tie-up because he'll stay locked up tight. But what he will do is he'll take one of his feet up and he'll stomp down and push for flexion. Maybe he'll reverse an underhook and turn him against the cage. But either way, you just see all that thigh and ass flexion, and it just seems to stop whatever momentum that the person is trying to get on him. Like all Woodley has to do is just tie him up and then do one of those stomp flexions, and it just kills all the momentum of the exchange. And sadly, the fun of the fight usually, which is another case. But yeah, man, that's tough. It's like it's almost like cheating. It's like he is too much of a number one. Maybe that's why he missed my list, because everything you're saying is spot on, but you brought up, I believe, like a Greek god analogy, and that's also spot on. And maybe that's why perhaps he, evades my list, especially with my hipster mentality, right? It's almost like he's too good looking, like from handsome to muscles to like, again, Woodley's killing it and all, say what you will about, his status as a fighter now. I get it. I certainly haven't been kind as far as picking him, but man, he is all check boxes in these categories. And as you're saying that, I'm picturing like, I don't know if you've been to the forum shops here in Las Vegas, people, Caesar's Palace forum shops, and they have the sky that changes colors, it's a big mall, indoor, and they have all the statuesque Roman figures. I'm thinking, how both fucked up and funny would it be if like you had to walk through the forum shops that was designed by Ben and Dan Tom, where they use MMA fighters for all the models, the headless models. You just got to guess what they are just by their bodies. And it's going to be extra distracting because if it's Dan and Ben, there's probably going to be, where everyone's giggling at the little packages compared to the big muscles. Like, I think you'd have the opposite problem with me and Ben at the Realm. At the helm, we would be, there'd be very disproportionate package sizes. So that would be its own issue.
Every single one of them would just be a Gegard Mousasi model.
Would they? Oh, Jesus. You can do the face, too, which is great, because Gegard naturally has you can put the little Caesar crest in his hair. It looks kind of natural there, but I don't even know if they would allow kids to go through that mall after, like, especially once you get to, like, for me in the Thicc Willie section, like, it's just, we've had some obscene reports and some fines from the city.
This is true, and you can search my laptop if you're bored. I have a picture of Gegard Mousasi from a weigh-in where he's wearing a type of underwear where there's nothing you can hide, and I just have a red circle around it, and I saved it as Mousasi for later, just Mousasi for later. Because I'm like, I have a feeling I will need this at some point in history, and that is like staying on my laptop until I need it. Because,
by the way, Mousasi for later, great name, Gegard. If you're listening for your future OnlyFans account, Mousasi for later. That's a great branding right there.
Mousasi's gonna message me going like, delete this shit now. Delete that picture immediately.
So you're saying there was a frog in his boxers as well as a frog in his throat, is what you're trying to say?
It's a bullfrog in his boxers, man.
Well, basically, fuck this thing. All right. Sorry, that's my Mousasi. Sorry, awful. Wow. So no, that's a great. That's a great number one, Tyron Woodley. Could you imagine like him versus a prime Hector Lombard? Like how excited we would have been for that matchup, and it would have been just a 25 or 15-minute staring contest. Was that what it would have been?
It would have been exactly. Listen, Hector was the man who was flummoxed by Tim Boach's front kicks for 15 minutes. So I'm not really sure that fight would have been anything other than feints and occasional right hands from way too far away for either of them to land it.
But it would have had that like Ngannou Derek Lewis build up where it's like, there's no way there's not crazy. Look at these guys. That's how they would have sold it. Like, look at them. I mean, I don't even have to sell anything here. Like, that's what Dana White would be saying. And everybody would be like, oh, yeah. And it would be us staring at them and them staring at each other the whole time.
Perfect to have Sylvester Stallone narrate the the hype video. Look at these guys. I'm telling you. Look at this muscle guy and this guy's muscles, and you just smash them together.
You're gonna need like subtitles for Stallone now because he's gotten worse over the years. Like now, you can barely understand him. He's everything got a little blurry after my sexual escapade with Mickey. And it's all like you're like, what did he say? And you got to read the subtitles now. Like he said so many liver dialysis. You know he.
Oh Jesus.
You should be speaking to these fighters. By the way, I mean a lot of these guys are head down the Stallone. And I don't mean putting your head under a glass coffee table. We'll not have to go down that road. I'm talking more about the liver dialysis part of it. Jesus, sorry.
Off the rails, but
this is off the rails. Yeah, now we're diving into Sylvester Stallone rumors. Who was the next closest to making your list, Ben? As I pull up listener lists for this completely gets out of the rails.
This is the one that I think is going to make people the most mad, and it's OSP. Because I remember the reaction everyone had to when he fought Ben Rothwell, and everyone was just like, where the hell did that ass come from? And then you go look back at his light heavyweight fights, and you see there's the ass. And that's honestly the reason why he didn't make my list. Because when you go a whole career at such a high level on the biggest stage, and your ass is not the focus, even though he made that heavyweight jump and his ass is clearly deserving of mention, I think it escapes that top 5 because it took him going up to heavyweight for people to really, really notice just how ridiculous his ass is. And for that reason, he was an honorable mention. Do you want to go back and forth on names for honorable mention, or do you want to do like just all of them at once?
No, we could do all of them at once, but that was perfect timing actually because I got the listener list pulled up first. And I will add in that OSP. That's great, man. Tennessee. OSP. He is a thick fella. I mean, you could argue outside of knocking people out every 6 years with his left hand or relying on people trying to choke him, that he really depends on all his abilities are below his waist. That sounds really awful, but I mean, there's a lot there. Those heavy kicks, ass. You would probably make the hog list too. I'm sure. OSP looks like he's packing. Jesus, Dan. I'm sorry.
No, you're not wrong. I was gonna say he probably would make the hog list because that dude's got a massive dick. There's no question.
No way. I mean, he looks like you talking about rest on your laurels? That guy looks like he rests on his dick. I mean, let's just be honest. He's just. I mean, who else? Look, there's no other way you can explain that calm and relaxed look with a roided up John Jones in the ring with you for 5 rounds, and you're just like, yeah. It's summertime. It's pretty cool out here. He's just chilling. He doesn't give 2 Fs. He's like, oh, I got my arm broken. I'll finish the fight. I got 2 more arms. I'm like, what? Sorry. Yeah.
It's true. It's true.
Props and that hats off to OSP. Again, speaking of hog analysis, of course, my man No Holds Brad at Brazchuk from the MMA Analysis. He's going to weigh in on the top 5 thick fighters. He says, obviously, all caps, Thick Willie. He is the inventor of the name, so tip of the hat to you, Brad, as you definitely deserve that pick. Here's one that I love, but maybe I just love him too much. He's certainly thick, but I just love him so much as an old school fighter. If I was being honest, he didn't rank that high on this list for me. I would be putting him on because I just simply love Igor Vovchanchin. That's who Brazchuk has. Igor, by the way, 5'8", fighting at light heavyweights at that time, pretty much. Johnny fucking Lineker in all caps. I mean,
that's see, he's thick, but I don't remember him having a great ass.
Yeah, the ass part is tough. Maybe at bantamweight it came in because he certainly filled out more at bantamweight.
Yeah, for sure.
But you know what? If
a barrel, then like everything was kind of like the same thickness. There was no defining feature, I would say, for him.
It's hard, though, because if you're talking about lighter fighters, it's really, I don't think there's many people, because it's either John Lineker, who's maybe too muscular and not enough ass, or you're having to dig back to the WEC and go like Antonio Benuelos, where, you know what I'm saying?
Holy shit, that's such a good call.
It's a blast from the past.
I wouldn't have even thought of that until you mentioned him.
I mean,
that's such a good pull.
You want to say beer bellies don't just not affect cardio at heavyweight, folks. They don't affect him at bantamweight either. Look at Benuelos' belly and look at the output he was putting out. But all love, by the way, to Benuelos. He also has Brad also has Tyson Griffin, which we covered, and as he put, Paul Harris.
There we go. Paul Harris. Not to be confused with Paul Harris.
That's right. This next person you're probably more familiar with, although I love him a lot and I love his list. That, of course, is Jellyfish Jan at P4S Stan, or P4 Stan. Number one, Jan Blachowicz, wide. He is, man. He's more of a wide than he is a tall
boy. I wouldn't say he's a thick boy, but he's a wide boy.
Yeah.
He's got the other aspect that matters. There's circumference, but we also got to go with width. So
that's right, baby. Polish power, right?
Polish power.
He loves him some Oleg Borisov as well, so Jellyfish Jan gets points with me. Tank man, he says. Number 3, Rodolfo Vieira, also wide. I mean, super muscular, but I mean, like Woodley in the sense of he's like thick muscular. A thicker Woodley, obviously, but he's up a weight division, of course. But man, that guy's, again, super muscle territory, but yeah, I see the thickness, absolutely.
I don't actually know what his lower half looks like. I've only seen him in the longer shorts or in a gi.
Yeah, oh, Jesus Christ.
I'll let you know if he visits the Marcelo locker room one day, though, because I've seen a fair few amount of dicks in my day from there.
Jesus, right? Me too. Holy crap!
Oh my God, the amount of fighter dick.
It's like, but it's weird because usually I'm used to like your athletic club where it's just the creepy old dudes that are like having to do the one leg pose for everything, which is really weird. Mm-hmm. But at Marcelo's, it's just like beefy Brazilian dudes who could beat your ass, and you're like, okay,
oh yeah,
all right, Poppy.
Exactly. Yeah,
whatever you say.
They might beat your ass in the shower. So,
Speaking of which, I'm going to interrupt his list here. Actually, I'll finish his list. Paul Harris, the ultimate wide. Number 5, Hector Lombard. I didn't really reveal my personal story because we were so taken with Tyron Woodley being mentioned at the same time that I think me and you just really got lost there, right? Apologies, listeners.
I would like to hear more about your number 1 for sure.
So this is fucking scary. Like, it reminds me of at least the one of the times that I saw Joe Rogan live, a stand-up joke he had that was about Brock Lesnar, and
I know exactly which one you're referring.
Yeah, and it was right, and it was pretty good. It was essentially just like, and I'll probably butcher it, but like the thing about Brock Lesnar is that he could do whatever he wants, and I have no say. So he's like, "Hey Joe, what is it, Brock? Don't fuck me, don't fuck me, don't fuck me, don't fuck me. Come here for a second. All right, yeah, sure, Brock. Don't fuck me, don't fuck me, don't fuck me." Right, and that's the joke because at any time he could fuck you and you have absolutely no say, right? And so we get these fighters that come in, and some are just as scary as you think. Like Justin Gaethje, like I remember it was after the Michael Johnson fight, and I didn't break that fight down on Junkie, but I got hired at Junkie at the time. So I'm like, sweet, you probably didn't see that I picked against him. But it might have been me in my head, but I swear Gaethje was looking at me like he wanted to kill me the whole time. I'm like, he knows. He fucking knows, doesn't he? It's like the movie, like, the guy's trying to keep a straight face, like, keep it cool. Like, they know I'm wearing a wire. They know I'm wearing run. Do I run? And the only other guy that gave me that really vibe was Hector Lombard, and he came in. This was after the CB Dalloway fight, right? He had and this was ironic because Lombard's a dirty guy, but the ref, just like we're going to have to hear again with the GDR home if they remake this fight, we're not going to hear anybody bringing up the fact that it's the freaking ref's job to get in between fighters, and I hate that because it's a major fighter safety issue, and the fighter has to wear the hat of a dirty fighter when the ref fucks those up. And that happened as well in the Dalloway Lombard. And late shot, not late shot, I'm not arguing that. But the fact was the ref was out of position, and with Lombard's, his history, you're not exactly sympathetic. I get it. So he probably wasn't in the best of the mood. Valerie was in. We were interviewing Valerie, and he was just like came in before the interview, almost like a manager, and he's like, "So you're going to give a good interview, right?" Like, yeah, whatever you say, Hector. Whatever you say. Yeah, of course. Yeah, and we're just like, do you want to get into the interview? And it was mainly about her, and he was just kind of like sitting there on the side, right there in item, folks. And I'm like, this guy is fucking still scary as shit. This is welterweight Lombard, still scary as shit. By the way, no way, I think he's like 5'7" and 5'8". That's another thing. When you meet these guys in person, they're often shorter than they list. Like, DC's listed at 5'11". That guy's barely 5'10". It's just, I think these guys are a bit shorter, and so is Lombard, but still terrifying. And I forget what it was, But it was like one of those busy things, and people, and I'm doing a lot of producing duties, especially at that point of the show for MMA Junkie Radio. We're on Sirius at this point still, and it's kind of a scramble. We're juggling guests. The hosts were indisposed, and Hector was just wanted to follow up on something, so he's like, "Here, I'm just gonna give you what's your number? Here, I'll get your number, and I'll follow up with you." And I'm like, "Oh fuck, he wants my number. I can't say no to him." So I was like, "Fuck, oh shit, here we go. Yeah, sure, Hector, whatever you want." And I give him my number.
Here's my social security number too.
Yeah, and he's like, thanks, and he leaves, and I think that's it. And we load up our interviews. The writers get it. It's like a whole process, and our job is done. And I don't like none of the interviews went out, so it's not even like on my radar like that the editorial is gonna put something up that's gonna upset him or whatever. And literally that night, I remember it was 12:30 midnight, and I get a text from Hector going, "Hey Dan, you up?" Like, I'm looking at my phone. Dude, it's so easy to lie. Like, everyone's asleep at this hour. Like, who the fuck is up, right? Like, just don't answer. And I'm like, wait a minute. What happens if I don't answer? Like, I don't know. I don't know what it's like to be on Breaking Bad or on Ozark or to work for drug cartels. But, like, this is what it must feel like to get the call from the head drug cartel guy. Like, okay, if I don't answer, I'm in more shit. So I'm just like, hey, Hector, what's up? So scared because again it's just like anything he says fucking goes, and now the guy's got my fucking number. I'm like, what the fuck are you getting yourself into? This guy's hitting you up like and I forget, it ended up being something friendly, and like I remember like the same thing happened with Todd Duffy back in the day. I'm like, oh shit, did I piss this guy off? And it was literally like, hey, do you want to come on a podcast? And like it was something really friendly, but you don't know these guys, right? You're like, oh crap, what I say.
How would it piss them off?
And it ended up being nothing but just the suspense and that whole thought in my head, like, this is the last freaking guy I want with my number bothering me in the middle of the night. Like, because thankfully he didn't ask me to come down and give him a ride somewhere because I would have had to. Like,
about the airport, come get me.
Yeah.
Which airport?
Randoms. Yeah, Jesus.
It doesn't matter. You're coming to get me.
Thankfully, I haven't heard from him since. Maybe I will after this podcast. But those were the listener lists. I was bad. I didn't tweet them out on Facebook and Instagram, but follow the account there at the PYN Podcast. Of course, same handle on Twitter at the PYN Podcast. Won't pollute your feed. Let's clean up with honorable mentions. What else didn't make your list as we get out of here, Ben?
Miesha Tate. I feel like she deserves a mention. More post editions than pre.
Yeah.
She got the matching pair, for lack of a better term. Kayla Harrison. That's a truly thick woman, and I mean that like she is just. If there's a woman who could do the Ben Askren thing, it's 3-time Olympian Kayla Harrison.
Or the triangle thing we were talking about.
Olympian. Sorry?
Or the triangle thing we were talking about?
Oh, that's not even a question. Bob Sapp.
Oh, yes. Yes.
I mean, I don't know. I don't think I really need to just Google it. Like, that dude's traps were bigger than most people's asses. So
Totally.
And, yeah, Hector Lombard, Usman Paharis, and Thick Willie.
Nice. Yeah, I'm surprised, man. You mentioned Miesha, which I don't disagree with, by the way. But for one of my female honorable mentions, what about 5'1", 60 inches for a 145-pounder who fought Miesha Tate at 135, Rin Nakai? I mean, you want to talk about hashtag weird boner central. The MMA boner index, which is its own crazy world that you should step out of, folks. The MMA boner index must have been a wreck that night, right? It must have been all over the place. You were attracting from guys from all over the gamut, right? Between those two?
She's into some weird shit. Like, she does some weird photo shoots, too. Like, some really weird ones. Like,
yeah, she was ahead of she was ahead of, like, all this weird cosplay stuff, folks.
Like, I don't know if I can show this stuff on your stream, but some weird ass shit on her Instagram. Let's leave it at that.
Okay,
not her Instagram. Sorry, not her Instagram. Her just like Google image. It's weird, man.
Yeah,
really weird. But
I'm
I'm not into it.
A beautiful. Geez, yeah, that's more your speed. Probably with the Rachel Ostovich too. I don't know what it is, man. I'm not hating. A beautiful woman's a beautiful woman, But maybe let's just say if it's a little too close to home, I see relatives instead of attractive, beautiful women. So I don't have a radar. My radar is terrible from the Rachel Ostovich to the Rin Nakai part of the gamut. Let's just say, not hating, just saying.
I think it's a good shout.
The only other female shout on my list was 5'5", 64 inches, and just like Misha, you go look at her early one. She never looked as thick as she is now, and that is Betchy Kohea.
Betch Kohea. Oh, yeah. I remember John McCarthy patting her on the butt after the win, when she's just doing that like ass shaking thing, and he's just like, I don't want to be here anymore, and she just pats her butt and walks away. It's still one of the funniest MMA moments I've ever seen is John McCarthy's face as he's like, I hate this every moment of this.
The funny thing is, like, I love how like the neck grab, which is I can attest is crippling, is like, that wasn't appropriate, and that the ass thing was more appropriate in that sense. Like, I've had John McCarthy straight up punch me in the back to where I filled it the next day, and I was just working media at a Bellator show. I was like, and he likes me. I'm like, what the heck you do to people you don't like, John? Like, you were so physical with everybody still. I have these three names, but I couldn't put them on because they belong to Team Build-A-Bear. This might come, this sounds offensive, but hold with me. Darren Wynn is the team captain because I had an ex-girlfriend say, or she actually said it about Jakar Close. Looks like he was an MMA fighter built in a Build-A-Bear shop. And Team Build-A-Bear is Darren Wynn, Devin Clark, who is named Brown Bear. Come on, Brown Bear. His dad and is great, by the way, and Jakar Close. So they are Team Build-A-Bear. Do you see where I'm coming from there?
That is so fucking good.
Right? Like, and especially, like, I tweeted that. I tweeted that in, like, the Gerald Meerschaert Darren Wynn fight, and then, of course, like, Gerald Meerschaert choked him dead. And everyone's like, he just choked out the teddy bear. And I was like, oh, no. So, that's why they're not on Team Thicc, but they are thick guys, in credit. Those are all thick men.
You got to throw Cormier in there, too.
Yeah, Cormier is written on here. I also wrote, Sean Jordan almost made the list because he's a thick guy and he hits sweet chin music, man.
That's on Derek Lewis.
Yeah. That's a great edit, by the way. When any Jim Ross edit like kills me because I love that golden age WWF that I grew up in, but it's so perfect, that edit. And Sean Jordan, he can do backflips. The commentators are talking about just how he's built like a fire hydrant. Like even Brian Stan goes into Joe Rogan mode when he commentated a Sean Jordan fight.
Yep.
But he surprisingly is listed at 6 foot. He seems like he would be at the 5'10" or 5'11" range.
I think he is legit 6 foot just because he didn't seem like he was, a half a foot shorter than Derek Lewis.
True.
But he's probably like 5'11" to 6 foot for sure. There's no question he's less than 5'11" at the bare minimum. One person I almost forgot, and I forgot to write her down, and I really shouldn't have. Tracy Cortez deserves just a quick shout out. Because if there's a waist down,
hey, if and going by the trajectory of both the men and women on getting thicker as their UFC career goes, she may be Rachel Ostovich light for now, but we'll see what that fine product ages into, like wine. These women age like wine. A lot of them too. All hats off to them.
I'm gonna need to lie down after this.
The last two honorable mentions for me is Jimmy Rivera, 5'4", 68-inch reach.
What a thick boy!
And he is, because he's not too ripped. He's strong. He's got muscles. I'm not saying he doesn't, but they're more of the thick variety.
He's the character that they forgot to add the definition for. They just left it at the bulk.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like they just like, shit, I gotta go home. I forgot a sandwich or something. And then just like they were like, fuck it, it's done. We're done. Just throw him into the show.
Like even when he weighs in, he always needs the towel because it's like a big weight cut for him. But he doesn't look anymore. He doesn't look emaciated ever. He just looks maybe a little less mass, but still just as thick. Yep. And then he's thicker on fight night.
He's got a super wide back.
So that takedown defense, the thickness translates to takedown defense is the common thread here. This guy, although could have used more takedown defense, this is an old school name, Jason the Punisher Lambert.
My man, tough 3?
Yeah, I think so. That was the season.
He was the one who lost the Bisbing at the finals, right?
That would be tough 3. That would be Bisbing season. Correct, Amundo. Yeah, the cop, Jason Lambert. Didn't he?
The blue hair.
Did he have a late stoppage himself, or was he just the one, oddly enough, at the victim of the late choking out of excessive choking of Sobral?
I don't remember who Sobral did it to, honestly. I would not be able to remember if it wasn't. I'll have to Google it, which I'll do right now. I'm not going to remember that.
Okay, and I'm just looking up the Punisher Lambert there, because I remember he might have had a weird stoppage where like he just kind of got oh no, he knocked out Sobral, so it wasn't that.
Oh shit.
But I think that might have been it too. There was like a lot of bad UFC 68. Yeah, there was a lot of bad blood in that fight from what I remember, and it might have been one of those where like he maybe just taunts and does the yelling thing after he knocks him out and gets all that energy out that he had.
That was man. He had I'm trying to read like his. Was it Bisping who beat him, or am I crazy? Was he tough 3? I want to say he was tough 3. Or am I wrong? Oh, tough 2.
Oh,
sorry,
yeah.
You're
okay.
Tough 2.
Wow,
so
yeah.
Who the hell did Bisping beat?
That's right. It was the Grove. Was it that Kendall Grove Ed Herman season that he came out of?
Yeah. Who the hell did Bisping beat? And why did I think it was Jason Lambert?
All those guys. Or was it Josh Bring the Pain Haynes? Is that who you're thinking of?
Yes.
Josh Haynes?
Correct.
And that guy was like,
Josh
he was
Haynes.
like a cop. He's a cop now, I think still, but was like a strip club security guard and like came down from heavyweight to make as low as 170 at one point. Yeah, I remember that. Josh Bring the Pain Haynes.
He had a lot of extra skin, if I remember correctly, and I remember him having a blue mohawk.
That's exactly who it was. Yep, that's who he beat. Remember that poster still the promo for that poster is probably still up there at Extreme Couture. So yeah, that's it, man. I think we covered all the Thicc fighters. I'm so glad our list we ended up with no crossover from minus Tyson Griffin.
We had the Tyson Griffin
That's it.
crossover. That's it. I was
deserving.
Surprised. I'm shocked. I thought like the one thing that I was like when you didn't say Tyron Woodley, and then your response was like he was too perfect. I'm like, but sometimes the right answer, the obvious answer, is the right answer. That's the best way I could put it. Like if I had to make the argument, like if we were about to do a full blown debate, that's my lead-in. Like the right answer is sometimes the obvious one.
It is. No, that's true. And we could go back and revisit this list, and Thicc Willie might climb his way to the top. As far as the Thicc King goes. So,
I think Willie might.
He's my Thicc one to watch out for, I guess.
Oh yeah, he's the Thicc one to watch. I think that needs to. Holy crap! That needs to be a monthly feature after like a bunch of MMA cards, like Thicc one to watch.
As long as y'all reference this list, I'm happy for it. That's why we put them out. So if you were able to get through this show without being triggered into some homophobic rant, which we don't want you here anyways, if that's the case. Or B, which I'm guessing is the majority, you were able to stick around. You just think we're even weirder than you probably already thought we were, which I'm guessing is going to be the majority of feedback from this show. Then thank you.
We're serious MMA journalists or analysts.
Yeah.
We are serious people in a serious sport.
I mean, some people use their powers for good. Some people like Paul Juarez use their powers for bad. Whereas we just use our powers for weird.
Whatever the fuck we want.
Yeah, there we go. And that's
love
another.
It, hate it, or want to turn it off. I don't know which one.
That's why.
Don't. It's great.
Well, no, that's why I love you, my friend, and all your friends and mine. I can say as well from the fight site, and because that's what you guys kind of do. It's hard for me to break away from the MMA schedule and the minutiae. I'm very grateful. Don't get me wrong. Very grateful to be where I am, working what I do. But as odd as this might seem, folks, this is actually a very nice break for me. These top 5 shows, even the goofy ones like this, bringing a guy like Ben, who I can joke with on Twitter, and I find out it's just as enjoyable, as close as in person gets these days via Skype. So thank you, man. Thank you for coming on.
Thank you so much for having me. I honestly had a blast. I needed this after I've had a very tired, not a bad few days, just very exhausting few days, and this actually woke me up, and I had an absolute blast. I loved it. This is exactly the kind of like decompression I needed. So thank you for having me on. I would love to eventually come back on and maybe discuss some analytical stuff. from a grappling point of view. You know, my passion, my love. But thank you, man. This was a blast, and all those feelings are absolutely mutual to you as well. You're a great guy. It was a ton of fun to talk to you. You're just as fun on Twitter as you are in real life. More fun in I guess, real life. Is like you said, this is the closest we get to real life right now. So, thank you again.
Hey, man, depends who you ask, but the lunatics run the asylum here, so what you see is what you get, for better and worse. So that does mean a lot coming from yourself. Thanks again. We'll see when this thing gets released, and I would love to have you back, man. Pick a submission, pick a grappling topic if you want it to be a top 5, or if you just want to wax on a topic like me and Tommy Elliott did. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that, the audience, the listeners. And hopefully you guys enjoyed this one. You can always submit more top 5 topics to me. I know my man Chris Rennie, who does fantastic work over there in the art world as well as on Bloody Elbow. You can find him on Twitter at Rennie MMA. He suggested top 5 club and subs, and I was like, dude, just why don't you come on and do it yourself? And he's like, I'll be down. I'm like, cool. And just like how we were talking, Ben, you're like, I wasn't sure if you were gonna have me on, and I'm like, dude, the secret is, as busy as I am and this and that, like, it's actually quite easy to get me to do stuff. You just gotta ask, because I'm so terrible at bridging the connection, because I figure everybody's busy, and I'm the one that's like, they don't want to do stuff with me. This stupid show, I suck, because I have those issues. So believe me, folks, sometimes all you gotta do is reach out and be kind, and we need more of that. We even need more of this weird content, because there's not just, like I said at the top of the show, Ben, like arguably way too much MMA. Even people that would push back on me. You know, oh, Dan, you're just a contrarian. It's just because it's your beat. That's very true. Those are all true. But I think we're all feeling the over-influx of MMA. And with everything being so argumentative, especially in our lovely country right now where everything's so politicized and fiery, it's nice to be able to, like, joke and just talk about things and not take things so seriously.
And if there's one thing that's not politicized, it's just a beautiful ass.
That's right, baby. That's probably why the grappling team, you talked about like the Team Spectrum grappling team, which is terrible to even reference that now for people who didn't tune in earlier. But like, for example, like my grappling team that I was a part of was BCG. And it was because everyone was the killers or this or that. And they took themselves so seriously. We're like, screw all that. So Coach Neil Melanson was like, we're going to use my old Special Forces group name called the BCG. And we called ourselves the Big Cock Guys. And we actually have rash guards that say BCG, and it says, we take on all comers and come on all takers. And it's got Neil Melanson's monkey logo that he has on all his books. It's fantastic, which explains a lot about me. I even have a custom faction BCG mouth guard. It's a real thing. And it was great. And they would only use the acronym, of course, on the loudspeakers. But you bet your ass, whenever we did Nagas, Grappling Quests, whatever the tournaments were, we were writing for our team Big Cock Guys. But we also wrote BCG because otherwise they wouldn't say a name, and they would always, of course, shorten it to the BCG. Right. They couldn't say it over the loudspeaker. But even if we got them to say BCG, we're like, yeah, Big Cock Guys, and we eventually got in trouble for that because that's not something you can really shout in the gym with kids around. But yeah, man. So the sense of humor is sadly nothing new to me.
Well, it was a pleasure, and I would do this again in a heartbeat. So
cool,
thank
man.
you again. Seriously.
Follow Ben at Agent Ben10 for his comedy. And yes, he actually is knowledgeable about grappling, and he's a better interviewer than he gives himself credit for. You can find all his content and the other amazing content collectively held at thefight-site.com. You can follow them as well on Twitter. Ben's got it linked in his bio, so you can just go give the old double follow there. Subscribe to their YouTube channel as well as ours. Hello there. Give the video a like if you liked our conversation or weren't completely offended and scared by it below. And subscribe to the channel if you're feeling oh so generous. Daniel Tom MMA for our audio listeners. Thanks again, Ben. And until next time, folks, always protect your neck.